It's Taylor Morning at NTV. Now, several countries in East African region have been in the crosshairs of human rights organization for abuse of the rule of law. And to speak to us about the rule of law in the region, we have Mr Bernard Oundo, the president of the East African Law Society. Good morning, Bernard.
Good morning, Andrew.
Good to see you after all those many years.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Nice to see you again.
Going to the same schools, and finally we are here. But for some reason, we're still in the same land, right?
Yes.
For starters, how is the East African legal fraternity holding up?
First, let me just, Andrew, explain what the East African Law Society does.
Yes.
We are the regional bar society. We have about 6 members. And these include the Law Society of Kenya, the Uganda Law Society, the Burundi Bar Association, the Rwanda Bar Association, the Tanganyika Law Society, the Zanzibar Law Society, and South Sudan Bar Association.
Oh, finally, South Sudan.
So we are over now 25,000 members in the region, and we were primarily established to advance the cause of rule of law in the region, to support the integration of the East African community, and to build the professional capacity of our members.
So how do you handle that role on a multinational front?
It's taxing, I must say, Andrew. You can imagine, you can imagine. It's really taxing. Our headquarters are based in Arusha, and so I have to be in Arusha at least once or twice a month, and then move within the region and discuss with the bar societies on the challenges that they face.
That's tedious.
Yeah, but while it is taxing, it is also greatly enriching, and so I love what I'm doing.
You love what you're doing?
Yes.
When we come to the rule of law in the East African region, what do you make of it? We've had a lot of issues going on since you came to office and up to now.
And maybe even to start the conversation, Andrew, today is
Janan
Luom Day, and we are celebrating the life of Janan Luom. If you remember, Janan Luom spoke the truth
and stood for it,
and died for the truth. And I think it is the day that we all must then celebrate and emulate that sort of courage. Because issues to do with rule of law require courage to stand up and to speak the truth. So on a day like this, it's important for us to take cognizance of the celebration of Janan Luom, who was the third Archbishop of, interestingly, of Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and Boga Zaire.
He was covering a lot.
He was covering a lot. Now, if you look at the region, and you can look at it in terms of many aspects, you can look at it in terms of fundamental protection of human rights and freedoms, and you will notice that there is a decline in most of the member countries, despite the gains that we made in the 90s. So the issue, Andrew, is this. While we have made legislations, and you can start with the example of Uganda, you have a whole array of laws on torture, you have the constitution, every constitution in the region has a chapter on protection of fundamental rights. You have member countries ratifying international treaties on protection of human rights. The challenge and the point is this. Well, we hear so many pronouncements.
Are they implemented?
Are they implemented? They are not implemented. So the issue that we are missing for us to be able to move the needle is the political will to act
on the policies we have,
on the policies,
human rights,
and the laws that we have. And you can take a very good example here in Uganda, Kakweza's recent case. The government has made several pronouncements, including His Excellency the President, on torture. The Attorney General is on record for saying this is not the policy of the government of Uganda. What we need to see is action against these perpetrators. Is there political will to act? Only when we see this action shall we say the needle is now moving. So, and I think that is critical.
But before we get to the political will, are the masses cognizant of the rights they should stand up for? Because yes, much as they have the right, they have the duties. Are they cognizant of the duties as well? They need to, you know, rhyme with the rights in that way, so that even the ones, people like you who stand for the rule of law, you're helping people who are shooting in the same direction. Is the population in one way or the other, you know, in their rightful thinking? do we swim in the same wave of in the know?
I think that's a very good point, Andrew. We have a lot to do in terms of educating the masses.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that has helped is social media. The fact that if a right is violated, you have social media influencers, you have Twitter, you have all the social media. But we do our part in terms of educating the masses, and I think the law societies in the region are doing their part. It's a responsibility for all of us, and I must thank the journalists. Shows like this help educate the masses on their fundamental rights and freedom. And until we get that critical mass, which is also very key, it will be very difficult to move the needle. But that is certainly a very good point. But going back to rule of law in the region, if you look at Kenya, for instance, there are two fundamental issues happening in Kenya. One, this is the election season.
I really feel for you. When I saw what was going on in Kakamega the other day and in Kiambu and how people were speaking, the choice of words, the language they were using, I was like, oof. Bernard, this is tight here. It
is tight. It is a hotly contested election, as you know, between UDA and the alliance of Jubilee and ODM. And therefore, I think what is going to be key is the Independent Election Boundaries Commission. They have to be fair, they have to be transparent, because any doubts will bring up so many
2017 issues. Was a bad year.
2017 was a bad year. We hope that doesn't happen. But also more importantly, and if you look at the examples of Tanzania and Uganda in respect to internet freedom, we hope that they don't shut down the internet, as happened in Tanzania and then as subsequently happened in Uganda. As you know, the East Africa Law Society has gone to court over internet shutdown. So our hope really is that they don't shut down the internet, because that allows the flow of information for us to be able to know what is happening. But there's also a very problematic issue in Kenya. I'm sure you have read the stories on Yala River, bodies floating, about 19 bodies floating on Yala River. This is also very, very critical. The government should be finding out what is happening. Such things should not be happening.
I love the passion you have for this. But you see, in the recent past, Bernard, there have been very many issues on kidnapping, detention without trial in Uganda, even in Rwanda. Your association has been silent about this. Why are you silent, Bernard?
I think we've not been silent. Perhaps we've not shared. We have spoken out on every violation. The statements on social media, the East Africa Law Society has come out, but you also must remember that the East Africa Law Society works in hand with the bar societies. So
in those countries.
So if the Uganda Law Society speaks out, we don't have to come out and speak the same language. So I think that is maybe the lack of understanding. But where we find that the societies are not speaking out, we will come in, because remember, for us, we are borderless. And therefore we have the capacity and the courage to speak out on the things that they may not be able to speak out.
Well, with us in studios, we are having Mr. Bernard Oundo, who happens to be the president of the East African Law Society. I want to know, what are you as a body bringing together lawyers to make sure that the courts and the members uphold the rule of law? You're bringing the regional lawyers together. How are you making sure that all these members, 250,000, correct? 25,000. If all of them are in this association, how are you making sure as an organization that they stand for the rule of law? They are not in one or the other compromised. Personally, I fear lawyers. Along the way, they get compromised. How do we stay to the rule of law?
I think it's a good question, Andrew. It's challenging to have all 25,000 members on board. What is critical is the leadership. What is critical is that the leadership speaks for rule of law. The membership, I mean, we encourage our members to speak for rule of law and continue to advance rule of law, because rule of law is the reason we practice. I mean, if there is no rule of law,
you are not in business.
We are not in business.
True.
So it's not only us not even being in business, but even countries. You know, while we speak about investments in infrastructure, and you'll hear investors asking you about what is your rule of law ranking. If you look at the freedom, the indexes on rule of law. So rule of law is still very critical, not just for the legal profession, but for our countries to function and get the necessary investments that we are talking about. So we will encourage our members to be able to speak on rule of law, but as leadership, we continue to do what our mandate is.
I love that. Now, in the recent past, we had an issue where the Kenyan Law Society did not, they were not comfortable with Ugandan lawyers practicing in Kenya. We had that backlash a little bit. How did that go? Did it go down? Do we have now the freedom of intellectual, property from here to Kenya? Our colleagues practicing favorably well in the region?
Yeah, these are things that we are still working on. It was an issue of Kenyan law. The Kenyan parliament is debating a law stopping lawyers from Burundi and Rwanda, and they argued that there was no reciprocity, and that wasn't the case actually.
Okay. What was the case then?
There's actual reciprocity. In Rwanda and Burundi, Kenyan lawyers are allowed to operate. So it is an issue that we must continue to deal with in allowing what we call cross-border practice. These are discussions which are currently ongoing, and we hope that at some point we'll allow full cross-border practice. But as you know, it's a journey.
It's a journey. Well, if you're one of those lawyers, someone just sent me a tweet and I had to actually capture that. No, let's talk about the court orders. In Uganda and Kenya, recently courts have issued court orders for suspects to be released, and they're simply ignored. What's going on, Bernard? They're simply ignored.
And Andrew, it's related to the first issue we discussed.
Yes.
We have all this array of legislation. But implementation is a problem.
The political will.
Exactly. And then that goes into respect for court orders. In Uganda, for instance, and I have seen the Attorney General come out clearly and saying we must respect court orders. Respect for court orders is one of the fundamental canons of rule of law. If you don't respect court orders, how is the judiciary supposed to function? How will the judiciary function? So it is very critical. Our appeal continuously is to the powers that be to ensure that every court order is respected. We have made statements. The East Africa Law Society has issued statements in the Kenyan press against non-respect of court orders in Kenya, and this is what we continue to do. But related to that also is the respect for judicial officers. You see, we as lawyers we are taught to ensure that we keep the public confidence in the judiciary high.
In the system.
And we must call upon our members that you can disagree with the decision of a judge
on a principle,
but don't disagree with him personally. It doesn't take us any further. So related to that are the things that we have to do, because if we lower the judiciary, then it is very easy for people not to respect court orders. You see, there's a clear relationship, and therefore it is something that we must continue to encourage our members.
It makes a lot of sense. Recently, Uganda charged a suspect who was badly injured. It was not the first time. Kakwenza was here on the news, and he was badly injured. I wondered the juxtaposition of such a court that is going to deal with a suspect with tortured marks, and they have to deal with that. So how does the society deal with especially torture issues for those who have been incarcerated, detained illegally or legally, but they come out with the kind of torture? Kakwenza is one of those, and there are quite many who have gone silent.
Andrew, that is key, and I think as we've made the point, torture doesn't help anyone. Kakwenza's back should not be the face of the Pearl of Africa.
It's true.
It should not be the face of a country that is a safe haven for refugees. It should not be the face of a country that contributes peacekeeping forces. Torture doesn't help anyone. What's the role of the judiciary? And whereas I emphasize the fact that we must respect the judiciary, we must also ensure that judges who come to face with such torture should ask for that medical examination.
Okay.
They must ask for the medical examination before they even go on to try the suspect. The law is clear. The Torture Act, the Prevention on Torture, all that legislation is there, and I think it's a continuous appeal to the judiciary that when you come face to face with such individuals, please act.
Wow.
Please act. Please act as the law necessitates. Of course, there are instances where they have acted.
Yeah.
You know of a certain, I think, specific example. I can't remember the actual case where they acted. I think someone was brought and they managed to make that. But we must ensure that we act in all
manners, in all cases.
And in all cases.
It's very disturbing.
Yeah.
As the president of this law society in East Africa, do you get perturbed when you see these stories running of torture and the abuse of the rule of law? Yesterday we had one of the group of youths here. They went to the United Nations Human Rights Commission that it should stop funding the Uganda Human Rights Commission because it seems to be silent to what is actually going on in the public. When you see all this going on, what comes in your mind, Council?
It gives us sleepless nights.
Oh dear.
As leaders, it will certainly give you sleepless nights. But the point is this, Andrew. What sort of country do we want?
A peaceful country where freedom of expression is allowed.
Exactly. What sort of East Africa do we want? We want a community that is bound by the rule of law. You see, in East African community, we say one people, one destiny.
Yes.
Now, if you're talking about one people, one destiny, how are we going to all go in the same direction if we don't respect each other?
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So it is a clarion call to the powers that be. Let's stop the vicious cycle of torture. It doesn't help anyone.
I like the choice of word, vicious cycle of torture.
Yes. Today it is you.
Tomorrow it's me.
Tomorrow it is you.
Yes.
And it is as simple as that. But beyond this question, what sort of country are we going to hand over to our children? If you don't think about yourself, think about your children
and your grandchildren. Wow. Finally, let's talk about politics in the region. How is it possible that we still have non-tariff barriers like bans on products from different countries? We had an issue of the eggs. You saw the mails. I'm sure you followed the hashtag maize ran into the laptops. And then we have an issue of eggs. We have cabbages. We have milk. All these have been going on. What is going on, Bernard?
And I think it's interesting that whereas we speak about an East African community, we still take unilateral actions.
Oh yes, that's funny.
So it is a mindset issue.
Oh, it is those at the top, I think.
It's a mindset issue. Even the bilateral agreements we're going into to resolve these issues don't help the integration.
So how can we sort this out?
Why? You see, we have a treaty that establishes the East African community. The treaty establishes what we call a committee on trade remedies. Now, what is supposed to be done? Appoint the committee.
And let it be independent.
And it will be independent. So that we stop bilaterals. Oh, now, today, Kenya has banned maize from Uganda. You travel to Nairobi, sign a bilateral agreement. Are we in a community?
We are not.
Yeah, we are not in a community. And so our constant appeal, Andrew, let's use the mechanisms under the treaty establishing the East African community.
Because those, beat around the bush.
Yeah, we shouldn't beat around the bush. I mean, I watch the news, I see all these things happen, and we have issued statements, Andrew, on the direction we think the East African community should take in resolving non-tariff barriers. Establish the committee on trade remedies. You have a committee that will have composition from all countries. Okay? But beyond this, Andrew, don't you start back and think, well, we are trying to admit DR Congo, we are still having...
We are bickering.
We are bickering.
Over petty
maize, poultry, what, and you know? So we need to ensure that the mechanisms under the EAC treaty are established. That way, you create a mindset of East African community. But beyond it, we should ask ourselves, the beauty of a community, Andrew, is that it enables you to take your goods to a place where there is. So it's very advantageous to us. And therefore, this is one thing I applaud His Excellency the President on promoting integration.
Yeah.
We must promote and support integration. We must promote and support. It's the future.
As
I mean, you
region,
have,
yes.
yeah, I mean, you have the African free trade area coming up. You have the EU. You have the world, and the global trend is towards towards global. Why do we have to sit back? Why do we have to sit back? Well, but to your question, non-tariff barriers. Let's just ensure that the mechanisms.
Go back to the first protocol.
Yes, just go to the treaty. And establish the mechanisms. That
makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, the latest entrant to South Sudan in this association, how challenging is it to... I've been to South Sudan in all the provinces. I've traveled in all the provinces. These are my lenses. I think it's a country that has a lot of opportunities. I strongly believe in the narrative where they're going. Their budget is heavy, it's big, but we will get there. But the rule of law... I'll give you an example. Between Nimule and Ye, previously there were issues to do with security and all, but the other time I traveled and I used the road purposely to check the rule of law and security, how it is. It was superb. Such a young country coming in a region where some countries are 10, 20, 30 years ahead of them. How are you nurturing them to see that we have the same language, we speak the same conversation, and the rule of law is respected? I'll give you an example. When I was at the border point, I was told to pay some money. I say no. I told them I won't pay money. You came in East Africa, we have free movement of people and services. I'm a journalist and I'm going to move as such. And the officer was a little bit rigid, but later on he realized that maybe I know the protocols the country has signed. So these young countries coming in, the same applies to Congo. Shekedi is coming in with his cluster, but they've equally had some kind of issues. How is your society helping them, get in, settle down, and their critical mass is galvanized to make them better?
Yes, and we are at different points of our journey, and we must understand that.
Of course, yes.
We cannot assume that South Sudan will be at the same level like all these other countries. We can't assume that Congo will be at the same level.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that we are at different points of our journeys. What we are doing as East Africa Law Society, especially for South Sudan, is we engage the Law Society of South Sudan, and we will extend trainings on rule of law and capacity building to ensure that the members of the South Sudan Bar Association understand their relevance in advancing the cause of rule of law, and they'll continue to push for that. And interestingly, South Sudan has taken a number of matters to the East African Court of Justice.
Oh yeah, I've seen a couple of them.
Yes, yes. And so you can see that there is a progress. There is progress in that area. For DR Congo, as we said, East Africa Law Society welcomes DR Congo.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It makes business sense. What is key is that the civil society in Congo and all the other stakeholders must be brought on board. Let the process be inclusive.
Yeah.
To ensure that all the issues on human rights, rule of law are also put on the table. It's very critical.
And they are respected.
And they are respected. It should be one of the benchmarks that we look at even before we admit DR Congo.
Wow.
So we'll continue that sort of consultation process because we appreciate that whereas we like the ideal situation, we are at different points of our journey and to require some work to get us to where we want to be.
Well, your final remarks today as we're celebrating Jenan Luwum Day. To the powers that be. Today, me, I'm wearing black. As a journalist at different layers, our rights have been trampled upon by the security forces and the powers that be. As a journalist, I've been in jail, in and out, because of the work we do, speaking what we believe in. What could be your message to Ugandans as we're remembering Jenan Luwum? He stood for his right. He stood for what he believed in, the truth. To the Ugandan today, how can we use this day to reflect in that way?
And it's a good point. It's a good way to end the conversation, Andrew. We must emulate the courage that Jenan Luwum had.
Wow.
Well, that you said, I must thank the journalists for being able to open the spaces for people to discuss these issues. I must therefore call upon the church. The church must stand up. Civil society. All of us must be able to stand up and emulate that courage. We can only go far if we all speak the same language.
Nice. Well, there you have it. That is Bernard Oundo, the president of the East African Law Society. That brings us to the end of this conversation with him. But he makes very critical points. We can only go far if we are all facing the same direction and speaking the same language with the same voice. I'll take a break for now and I'll return shortly. Good morning.